creating. And of course, as you said, our support is crucial, you know. And I think nobody exemplifies that support more than Isolina. She's been there many occasions. She's been the translator for the Bolivarian Circle there for many occasions. Been to Bolivia as well, and she's going to give us a little bit of a recap of her personal experiences before Chavez, or during Chavez, and during Maduro. Maduro. Isolina.
How am I going to follow Caleb? No. I don't think I have anything to say. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. So I'm just going to speak based on my conversations with people in Venezuela. I've been there only 2 times, but hoping to be back many more times. And just talk a little bit about what the people down in Venezuela have to say about what happened in the elections. So I just want to start off by saying that I went there in 2009, and I saw a different Venezuela in 2009 than I saw now. In 2009, I saw, or I felt that people were more hopeful. I felt, based on what I saw, that the Bolivarian Revolution was moving full speed ahead with their socialist project, building a socialist economy from the base. During this time, I felt like that project, the socialist project that the Bolivarian Revolution represents, has been stuck. Not only by some of the challenges that they face within their own revolution, but by external factors. We know that Venezuela, within the past 17 years, has been through a coup against President Chavez, the oil strike or the oil lockout in 2002, 2003. And one thing that we know that has been consistent about Venezuela is the media propaganda, especially the international right-wing media propaganda against Venezuela. You can easily turn on the TV now and turn on CNN or any mainstream news media, and you're going to get some news about Venezuela, and it's going to be against the government. So one of the examples is in Spain. I'm assuming that most of you know what's happening in Spain. Spain had recent elections, and the PP, ¿cómo se llama?
Podemos.
No, el partido del gobierno, el PP, ¿cómo se llama en inglés? So the government party, right? They won most of the seats, but Podemos. Right, Podemos came in strong, and has challenged the bipartisan, system in Spain. And a couple of days ago, Rajoy came on TV to talk about the elections in Venezuela, talking about human rights violations in Venezuela when he has his own mess in Spain to take care of. So you have these kinds of situations where you have former presidents and world leaders coming on TV talking about Venezuela, talking against the government, talking about human rights violations in Venezuela when they have their own mess at home to take care of. So back to what I saw in Venezuela, the times during the elections was very tense. And before going there, I thought that the results of the elections were going to be different. I have been following Venezuela for a long time and more closely recently, and based on my understanding of the process, I felt like the government was going to win the elections. But my views shifted once I got on the ground, because I had the opportunity to talk to people about how the situation was at that time. And for the past 3 years, all the attacks against the government have intensified. It's nothing that's happening in Venezuela, it's new. The media war, the economic war, all of that was happening when Chavez was alive. but it has intensified. The death of Chavez was a trauma that the Venezuelan people had to go through, and no one can deny that he had a strong leadership. He was one of the most important, he's one of the most important leaders we've had in the 21st century. So losing Chavez and the way he passed away, it was traumatizing for the Venezuelan people. And they had to go through that. They had to, go through a presidential election. The Guarimbas in 2014, the economic war, the psychological war that the right wing, the oligarchy, and the international sectors are waging against the Bolivarian government. So it was a time of tension. It was not a violent tension, but it was a tension that you could feel when you had conversations with people. And you would get different views about what's happening in Venezuela depending on who you talk to. I had the opportunity to spend time in one of the middle class or upper middle class neighborhood, Chacaito, where the Guarimbas happened. And you would talk to people there, and anything they had to say about the government, it was full of hate, full of hatred. You could feel it, you could see it. They don't want Maduro. And this is not only about an ideology thing, this is also about a class thing. They cannot stand the fact that someone who was a bus driver is now the president. And they have to call him Mr. President, because he is the president of all Venezuelans. Then you go to the barrios. In the barrios, the people are going to give you a different perspective, because they've been, through what the Fourth Republic was. They've been marginalized and oppressed under other governments, and this is the government that vindicated the historically marginalized and oppressed. So, coming from seeing what was happening before 1998 to all the social achievements that they have had within the Bolivarian Revolution, they understood that no government other than a revolutionary government could actually help solve the issues that Venezuela is facing right now. There is a huge economic crisis, and it's not only Venezuela. It's, the crisis of capitalism, and it's impacting every country, especially smaller countries like Venezuela. So that's one thing. And we also need to understand that the Bolivarian Revolution is not a government. The Bolivarian Revolution is a movement that didn't start in 1998 when Chavez came to power. It started 27 years ago, after the Caracazo, when people organized and mobilized and they said, we cannot stand this anymore. We have to fight back, and we have to come up with our own ways on how to solve the crisis that the country was undergoing in 1988. And then came the popular coup that Chavez led, and from then, the process of mobilizing people, and then coming to power. So nothing is going to stop the revolution. Nothing is going to stop the Bolivarian Revolution, and all revolutions go through process of change, challenges, defeats. We cannot downplay the fact that this was a big defeat or a big blow, let's say it like that, against the Bolivarian government. And I think what happened in the elections, the results of the elections, speak to the political consciousness that was developed in Venezuela after Chavez came to power. For decades, people were voting for the same people. The right-wing oligarchy, same people that were stealing the resources, giving away the resources to imperial powers. And after Chavez came to power, the people developed this political consciousness. The revolution developed this political consciousness, and that's why now the people, those 2 million people who didn't vote for the Chavismo, they knew the impact that their vote would have. We spoke to many people who felt like they were not being heard by the government, that the government was not addressing some of the issues that the people are facing, such as the scarcity of products, the economic crisis, and it's not only the oil, the drop in the oil prices, it's also the fact that 70% of the production and 80% of the distribution is in the hands of the oligarchy. So they stopped producing, they stopped distributing, or they would smuggle the merchandise outside of the country. So it's not that there's not products, it's just that it's not that there's no money to buy, it's not that there's no power of acquisition, is that a lot of these basic products, toilet paper, beans, corn flour, things that, basic needs, are being smuggled out of the country or being hoarded. And, the shelves are empty. And that's what causes the long lines. The same thing with the Bolivar. The long lines in the ATMs have a lot to do with the fact that these Bolivares are being smuggled out of the country and being resold, right, outside of the country at a higher price. So that's one of the things that was happening there. So those 2 million people, and I've heard people say, is that the Chavistas didn't go out to vote? I don't think that's accurate. There was a participation of about 70% in the elections, which is normal for parliamentary elections. For presidential elections, it's usually a little higher, it's about 80%. So there was good participation. And the core base of the Chavismo voted for the Chavista government. They voted for the revolution. 5-point-something million people voted for the revolution. But we have this approximately 2 million people who were unhappy with how the government handled the situation and decided to punish the government by voting against their own interests, because ultimately that's what it is. The opposition had no proposal on how to eliminate the long lines, how to restock the products. They had no proposals. The only proposals of the oppositions are to repeal the labor laws, to privatize the Gray Housing Mission, which has built more than 1 million homes for the working class, the working poor, to pass an amnesty law to pardon those who are responsible for the coup in 2002, who are responsible for the guarimbas, and many more violent acts, political violent acts that have happened in Venezuela within the last, 10, 17 years. And their ultimate goal is to take the executive power, to recall the president. So they had no proposal for how to form a government or how to improve the economic situation. And the same people who were there in the Fourth Republic are the same people that are back in the National Assembly. So those 2 million Chavistas voted against their own interests to punish the government. And one of the things that is being said, I don't really know much about the breakdown of who these 2 million people were, the ages and stuff, like the demographics. But we do know that a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of new voters, younger voters, who may have voted against the Bolivarian Revolution because of all the scarcity that's happening in the country, did not live or did not grow up within the governments in the Fourth Republic, so they don't have a consciousness of what was happening in the country before Chavez took power in 1998. So that's one thing, and I feel like I said, the Bolivarian Revolution is not just a government; it's a movement, and nobody can stop that. And people have been mobilizing since the results were known. People have been mobilizing on the streets. The president has been meeting with the popular sectors. One of the things that Maduro did after the results of the elections, he named a new cabinet. He has met with the Presidential Councils for Popular Power, which have since been established as a permanent body to advise the president. And these popular power councils, presidential councils, are formed by different social movements. So it's the people from the community, the people from the social movements meeting with the president to talk to the president about what they think the government was not doing correctly. Also, they installed the Congress for Socialist Economy. They're having permanent work sessions for the revolutionary counter-offensive, implementation of government efficiency in the streets, renewing the revolutionary communication, reinvigorating, rectifying out levels, which is known as the tres R's al cuadrado, or 3 R's. Revision, rectification, and relaunching of rebirth of the revolution. And very important, the installation of the communal parliament. There's been a lot of controversy around the communal parliament because, of course, the international press is saying that Maduro wants to abolish the National Assembly. Not true. What the communal parliament does is that, well, first of all, in 2006, President Chavez signed a law basically empowering communities to form neighborhood-based community elected councils. And the National Assembly is obliged to consult with the community organizations. So it's not like the National Assembly can do whatever they want, even though with the majority that the right wing has now in the Assembly, they have a lot of power to pass laws and to repeal laws. So one of the purposes of the communal parliament is to counteract these superpowers that now the right wing think they have because they have a majority in the National Assembly. So that's what's happening with the communal parliament, which is actually a constitutional institution. It's within the Constitution. It's not that Diosdado Cabello, the former president of the National Assembly, said, let me just form this political body. No, this is in the Constitution. Now, I don't have much time, but I feel like as Americans, U.S. nationals, I think we have a special responsibility to oppose U.S. intervention in Latin America and everywhere in the world, but in this case, we're speaking about Venezuela, Latin America, because there's a history of U.S. intervention in Latin America, and that's why they don't forgive Venezuela, because Venezuela came into the picture to change the geopolitical relations in the region, and I know that Eric is going to talk about that, so since I don't have much time, just that, oppose U.S. intervention. We need to build a strong movement here to oppose U.S. intervention, not only to let the Venezuelan people know that we stand with them, but to be able to stand up against U.S. government's actions against countries like Venezuela. And we know that, we have upcoming presidential elections in the United States, and we know that no matter who is in the White House, they're going to be serving imperialist interests. So we need to write, talk in social media, stay informed about what's happening in Venezuela so we can counteract the mainstream media propaganda. And I would invite you all to actually sign up our mailing list, email list, so we can send you information about upcoming delegations to Venezuela, because it's very useful to go there and see for yourself what's happening, talk to the people who are living there every day. And that's it.
Well, Isolina just took my job away and just perfect.